Okay, folks, how's everybody doing? Hopefully you can all hear me all right. Everything is working good. Let's see if this thing actually works. Let me know how you guys are doing in chat. Woohoo, woohoo indeed. Stand by for just one sec here. I'm gonna adjust volume levels a little bit just so it doesn't blow out your ears. When I do eventually go to make this thing turn on or make the sound come on. Hey, who we got in chat? Welcome, welcome, Captain Crash. Welcome, my man. How's the Hindenburg? The Winged Viking. Yes, Leo is one of your finer exports. Palm 57, welcome. Matthew 57, B77, sorry about that. How are you doing, my lovely? Rifey Poo, best end of year present. Yes. So now I know which side of the pond you're on. Robbie TP 2001, Happy New Year to you too, sir. Bearster, welcome and Happy New Year to you, good sir. Or ma'am. Gustav 1 timed it perfectly. That's what I was going for, basically. I was hoping to get this stream in when everybody was still either sort of up or already in bed. Or I'm sorry, sort of up or not quite yet, about to celebrate New Year. So I basically aimed it for right into the middle of the Atlantic. And Reflected Reality Simulations, Happy New Year to you, Graham, sir. Welcome, welcome. Read a Tailcone Geometry, and I got distracted by Leo and the Toto cover. Yes, sir. Good times then, I guess. Long time no stream. Yes, I've been waiting for some new 3D modeling from Goran. Still not ready yet, but I guess we'll just go with whatever we got so far. So it's still the old 3D, but hopefully it'll work. Last night fell asleep 5 in the morning, staying a little late up tonight won't make a difference. The Winged Viking, I've been there. I've been in the 5 a.m. club for the past several months. So yeah, Greenland primetime stream. Raphael VIX, welcome to the stream and Happy New Year to you too, sir. El Promo, Happy New Year. Everybody, welcome, welcome. And Matthew, thanks for hosting my stream as well. I probably missed that. So let's have a look over on the Challenger. So what I want to do here is, you can obviously see that let's see, if I hope I'm not blowing out your ears when I unpause this. I'm just going to quickly check my levels here. I'm going to back it off a little bit more so you can actually hear me over the sound of the aircraft. Rewatching a series, plan to go to bed at 3, but as usual, the series just keeps throwing cliffhangers. Yes, I know that. That's exactly the way that they're making stuff these days. Aleem A, welcome. Doing well myself. How are you? Funny stories, actually, I've been running X-Plane for about 2 days now. I've sort of been pulled aside doing some other work, so I just had to minimize. So poor thing's been sitting here in the air, so to speak, this is Hawaii, and I was just sort of sitting around here hanging in the air while doing stuff. Finally got my new machine in. I got it in about probably 2 weeks now. So I'm finally rocking something that doesn't completely stink. So running an 8-core machine. I've got 32 gigs of RAM, physical RAM, and it is ECC aware. So what was the ECC? Hang on. That was some way to check the ECC capabilities, but yes, it does have ECC memory, and my storage pool setup actually is fairly complicated. I'm running ZFS, as what else would I be doing, right? The 2 storage pools here are, one is just the boot pool for the kernel and drivers for the bootloader defined. This is the actual pool, the main sort of the root pool, the main storage system. Hey Coop, welcome, man. And Tank is my sort of bulk storage, and they are sitting obviously on different pieces of hardware. So main root pool is running on a pair of NVMe drives. So they are in mirror one. They are in mirror, so RAID 1, and the tank is just sort of bulk storage crap drive. And of course, get encryption. Actually, it's ZFS get encryption tank and RPool, and they are using ZFS encryption and all that good stuff. And actually, this thing, even though ZFS is kind of janky and supporting Ubuntu, it actually boots just fine. It prompts for the decryption key on boot, so all is well. That works pretty good. And I'm running a regular automatic backup every hour. It backs up to the tank pool, so it's running a mirror root, and then it's regularly every hour. It does a snapshot and a send over to the backup drive, which is inside of the box. So it's still local backup, but it is at least a form of backup. It's still within the same machine, so there is a chance of potential electrical faults causing some havoc. So we definitely will want to be. Eventually, I will be finally managed to work at ham physics stuff right now. That's what I'm gonna do. How is it? What? That's what I'm gonna be doing when you stream. Oh, hey, Pancake King, welcome, welcome. So I'm running. I finally had to update my years old and Geek Brune Leia. Welcome. And Happy New Year to all you folks. I've been running an old. Finally had to sort of push to update my old crappy NAS server thing. It's actually an HP micro server, so it's a HP micro server N36L. It's an old box. Been running. Yeah, Toto Cube. That's because it literally looks like a cube, right? So it's an old Athlon 2 1.3 gigahertz dual core, and it is running of all things. It's running Sun OS, which is the kernel is derived from Solaris. It is running Open Indiana, which is a type of Open Solaris delivered Omega Lily Athlon. Don't crash the Athlon, Alime. Sneaky Danish, welcome. What a perfect name for that. Yes. Sneaky Danish, welcome, welcome, and Happy New Year to you too. Don't trash the Athlon. It is actually quite a capable little machine. Now, the sort of big selling point of this thing is I think it even has ECC memory support. Even though I don't have an ECC set of memory in there, I should have got that. But it is a 13-watt embedded part. So it basically sits in a closet over there, and it's perfectly happy just whirring around in there. It's fairly old. It's been released. This CPU is from like 2011 or something like that. It's an old box, and you have an Athlon way back yonder. So I mean, it is called an Athlon. It is not really what you would know as a desktop Athlon. It is an embedded part designed to be put into these kinds of embedded servers. And let's see, is there some sort of spec here? Yeah, sure. Let's look at the HP spec. That's what the machine looks like. This is basically where I keep my CL650 pilot. Hello, welcome, and Happy New Year to you too. My current server box is a Core 2 quad. It's possibly worse than the Athlon and Toto QTM. Possibly, but Core 2 quads are fairly capable CPUs. So yeah, that's it. So the Turian one is the newer one. I have the older one, the Athlon one, and yeah, I think it even supports ECC. Yes, it even supports unbuffered ECC memory. So that's how you know it's about the same age as my main X-Plane machine. Yeah, possibly, yeah, reflected reality, but this thing is a lot less powerful in terms of like you look at the TDP. I don't know where they list it, but this is a fairly low power part. Anyway, it's meant to be in like embedded. The PSU is 150 watts, so and it's got 4 drive bays in the thing, which I've got 6 drives in there. My server box uses DDR2 RAM. Sure, why not? I've been using DDR2 RAM for years in the enterprise. Nothing wrong with DDR2. Now back then, when you wanted to have large RAM, they didn't have RDIMMs, registered DIMMs. Back then, for Intel, it was called FBD DIMM or fully buffered DIMMs. They were fairly expensive and fairly quirky. But yeah, that's what they used. It's a great machine, by the way. Unfortunately, newer HP microservers are kind of whatever, iffy. An old server sitting under my bed with an old quad-core Xeon socket 771. Yeah, full 16 gigabytes of RAM and two 1 terabyte drives would have been a beast back when it was released. Yeah, possibly. Um, Perhaps. For me, old time, old beastly machines were stuff like the Sun E10K. This is sort of what I would consider a big box. It doesn't come with a guy inside, but Sun Microsystems E10 Enterprise 10,000. This is what I would consider a big server. Released back in 1997, capable of up to 64 gigabytes of RAM in 1997. Those are non-trivial specs even by today's standards. So yeah. I came up with the E12K, I think. The E15K, something like that. Those are big boxes. Yeah, then the M3000, 4000, 5000. Those are big boxes. Feel bad for people in America. Okay, yes, so these are fairly big boxes. I'm not going to be playing music today on the stream. I want to avoid getting into that whole copyright crap with Twitch. And we're just going to listen to the sounds of the aircraft. So there was an issue I've been trying to cure here. It's in libsvs. In case some of you folks didn't catch the hard drive on my server box is so bad I can't really use it for anything. Mainly use it for when I want to download some large in a short amount of time, but it's hardwired in. Oh yeah. Someone mentioned the E10K. Yeah, Pilsner. I was thinking about you when I said that. The Sun E10K. The Enterprise 10,000. Apparently it took like you remember that video. Apparently it took like 90 minutes to boot and an hour and a half to boot that thing when it's fully populated with memory to get the thing into the operating system, which is I guess this is one of the reasons it's a neat feature that Solaris has. Apparently it never made it onto any other operating system. In Solaris it's called fast boot or fast reboot. So the initial sort of the main sort of bulk of that 90 minutes of boot time is essentially spent checking memory, right? So this thing has 64 gigs of memory, but the memory bandwidth was far lower. So it spent about an hour and a half training and setting up the memory subsystem, which came on many boards. By the way, the same thing still happens with modern servers. If you just put in a bunch of hour and a half to boot. So, for example, things like if you kit out a server these days with something like a terabyte of RAM, right? 1 terabyte, maybe 2 terabytes of RAM, the thing will boot. It'll literally sit at a black screen for like 10 minutes solid, while it is going through all the memory channels, testing all the memory, setting up all the memory, training it up, and basically doing all the bootstrap on the whole subsystems. And these machines were even slower, so that's why it took so long. AMD E2 powered laptop. After those at some point or other, maybe. So what Solaris had is a feature which it's still in Solaris and all the Solaris derivatives, but nobody really uses it for your home desktop machine, or very few people use it in their enterprise either. So they don't know about it. Fast reboot in Solaris means essentially that the operating system, instead of rebooting fully the machine, going back to essentially what they call the PROM, the program read-only memory, the boot firmware. Solaris, what it could do is it could take from the running operating system, load the new kernel and the new operating system into memory, and essentially itself it would behave like a bootloader. So you would get a very fast bootstrap. It would reboot in like 20 seconds while still being a full actual operating system boot. It would simply bypass the initial operating system basic set, the machine basic setup by the boot firmware, by the base, yeah, essentially the bootstrapping firmware. So that was pretty neat. That feature was released in, I want to say something like 2001, 2002, back when Solaris 10 came out. I think that was when they released the fast reboot feature. That did require the ability to have hardware. It did require some compatible hardware. It could do it on x86 servers as well and on x86 machines, but you have to have compatible hardware in there so that it's able to essentially software reset the cards and all the hardware controllers and all that kind of stuff, so that the operating system, once it boots up, once the next kernel boots up, it sees everything in a sort of reset and clear state, so that you wouldn't have crap lying around, like set up some filtering rules or anything of that sort. Filtering rules, for packet forwarding rules, and NICs and that kind of stuff. Anyway, now I'm rambling about enterprise hardware. Let's bypass that and get back into the action here. Synthetic vision system, right on the Challenger. You would think, it's a $30 million jet. You would think that the thing would have an amazing synthetic vision system. In reality, it's even less sophisticated than the G1000 and TBM's Garmin G1000 has. So, you got, come on, squish yourself. So you've got, two screens here. On the Garmin's, the synthetic vision image is generated by each PFD actually. So each PFD in a Garmin system is essentially just a small computer running, I think, actually Linux. PFD looks like it got sat on. That was because of the fact that I had resized the windows, so the windows just got squashed to fit in. Then when I resized X-Plane back to full size, it unsquashed itself. Anyway, so we're back to sort of reasonable sizing and scaling. So on a Garmin G1000, the PFDs themselves actually give you the synthetic vision image. There's a Linux machine in there. I think some sort of an ARM CPU or of some sort, maybe an Atom, who knows? And it has a little software renderer. It has just barely enough performance to render the old G1000. The newer ones, not a problem. The old ones has just barely enough performance left over to render a basic synthetic vision image. These guys don't have even that. They're called the ProLine. If you want to know the exact part number, it's ProLine AFD 522E, 5220E, so 5220E, and of course it doesn't find anything. But if you want to look for that, that's what the model number is for these screens. So those screens have, hey DJ Sean 001, g'day. So these screens do not have even the processing power to be able to render a synthetic vision image. So instead, what Collins did is the sort of classic airliner solution. You want to have a new piece of avionics or a new feature in the avionics, you add another box into the avionics space. Barb's LDSR, welcome. Good morning to you and Happy New Year. And Barb's LDSR, thanks for following, ma'am. So, the way Collins did it, right? They just add the airliner way is you add another box into the avionics compartment, and so they added a synthetic vision computer, the SVC, which we have simulated as a standalone part. So it's under DISP DISP SVC 3000 bit, and it basically interfaces with my synthetic vision rendering code. Shoehorning more features in the hardware not designed for it. Say it isn't so. So they've designed a new box that basically renders the image here. Now the trick is, this box streams the image out to both screens because there's only one synthetic vision computer. They didn't bother putting in two, right? Because most of the time they're going to be showing the same thing anyway. And synthetic vision is not a mission critical feature, so if it fails, whatever, you're just going to run classic, blue over brown. So how do you get the image out of the synthetic vision box into these screens? Of course, minimum effort. Sorry about that. A minimum effort, of course. And so what they are is actually running, this image is coming from the synthetic vision box, a composite analog video running over coax. So it is literally running, not that, it is literally running over this kind of a cable from the synthetic vision box. There's actually a video duplicator inside of the avionics bay down there. I'm brown over blue. Yeah. Minimum effort, maximum price. Yeah. So there's a little analog video duplicator box in there. And it just sends out the analog video stream out to these two boxes. Now the synthetic vision box actually does, the synthetic vision computer actually reminds me of BNC connectors. Well, that's because these are BNC connectors. This is not a, not a coincidence that they will remind you of that. They are. So yes, in avionics, whenever you are dealing with anything having to do with connections, everything has to have a locking connector. So you're going to have everything that is sort of locked, strung, whatever. Sometimes even lock wire shut. So it will absolutely not disconnect or vibration. So yes, they are literally using coax analog composite video to send this over. Which is why I'm thinking maybe I should just blur up the image here a little bit more via some shaders. You could do that quite easily. Let's take a look at how they look like. There's so many that I crimped back in the day. Yeah, I can believe that. So yeah, if you've ever done cable TV, analog or digital, back even satellite uses coax cabling down from the dish. So yeah, if you've ever had to work with cable, cable TV, satellite TV, anything like that, then yes, you would have to have done that. Anyway, so that's how they send the image over. In reality, it is fairly blurry, probably a little bit too sharp for me right now. I am actually rendering it in subscale, so it is not. So this screen is 1024 vertically by 768 laterally. It's a 4x3 screen. The synthetic vision image is rendered at 640 by 443 right now. So this is the sort of scale of that. So it's actually being stretched out a little bit to get to that 768 width. So it's probably, the synthetic vision would normally be about yay sized. So up about this line. For my career in IBM 400, and we use twin axe. Oh, well, twin axe. Those are fun to crimp. I'll blur up VR. It'll blur up in VR anyway. Perfect. Yeah, maybe. Can't tell you how many fingers or with stubborn connectors that won't come off back of the box. I can imagine. Yeah. I'll believe you. So yes, it is using synthetic. It is using analog video connections. Not even anything sophisticated. No digital. Nothing. Especially back when this was designed. That's the extent of my German. Yeah, back when this was designed, HDMI was new, reasonably new, and HDMI for industrial applications, I don't even think it existed, or it might have been. It was just fairly fresh. By the way, reason why you would never use HDMI or any kind of consumer grade connection here is because HDMI is friction fit, right? So it's literally it just holds in with the friction of the connector. So immediately, as soon as you took off, after a flight or two, your connector would come off. So there is industrial HDMI, and it runs over, I think, a screw type, industrial HDMI connector. I think they look over like VGA style. I'm not gonna show you. You're gonna have like connectors. Yeah, probably gonna be something more like that. Well, it's a DVI connector, but oh yeah, there we go. There you go. That'll be an industrial connector for HDMI, so you can actually screw the thing in and lock it in place so it doesn't come out. I'm in love with how the PFD looks. I wonder what kind of AOA protection, if any, does the CL have. It has all the protections. So you want to see a stall? I don't have my joystick. Stand by. I'm going to connect the joystick here so I can actually fly the thing like pretending like it's an airplane. Because right now I have everything disconnected. Stand by just for just 1 sec. Let's see that. Let's see. Did I break everything? Hopefully we're still there. We are. Looks like we are. Let's see. Where does this connector end? There you go. Cool. Fingers crossed it's not going to explode or anything. Open joystick calibration. Yes. Seems like we have a joystick. What's the takeoff procedure in the Challenger? Boss pilot, I'm going to show you later. Just run USB Type-C connectors. Oh, let's stall an airplane first flight. So let's. This is a new machine, so I haven't even had my joystick connected yet. Yeah, sure. Cool beans. Next. First thing to do: steep turns, stalls, overspeeds, you name it, I'll do it. I'd like to know the exact limits of my aircraft. Okay. So, do we have anything assigned? We have yaw, pitch, roll. And this is assigned to nothing. That's good. Actually, I want you to do nothing. Yeah, cool. Leave it up like that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna unpause the thing and I'm gonna level off here at 8,000 feet. Oh, aircraft is leveling off. Okay. I'll leave the audio here. So while we're on Autopilot, I'm going to show you basically one of the primary sort of protections for stall. Nobody simply plugs a USB controller in MSFS. Okay. So let's say I'm a complete idiot and I forgot, you know, yeah, I have to gear up. Okay. Let's say I just forget that I'm not, you know, going to set the airplane speed to minimum. Should actually go down to 100 knots. I'll change that a little bit later. So, see what happens. You can see the angle of attack increasing both here, and there's a separate AOA indicator on either side. There's actually 3 AOAs. And exact limits is that new resolution. So you can see our stall protection system angle of attack indicator is coming up and coming up and coming up. I can just look up ahead. Now let's let it increase. Taking way forever, but whatever. I'm gonna bring up here air control deflections. Yes, you might be able to see that. Their pitch thing is sort of there. Yeah, pitch is pretty much neutral. Okay, so right now it's neutral. Angle of attack still increasing and increasing. What are units of the digital AOA indicator on PFD? They're actually abstract units, so they are not designed to be anything. The indicator will scale based on flight speed and angle of attack behavior. So see right now, I haven't, you know, my hands haven't touched any of the controls. You'll notice that the auto throttle system is flashing AOA limit at me, and it's added power. because we've passed into this sort of protection region, the automatic ignition has turned on the engines. So Barb's LDSR red is the starter red bar here. I don't know if you can see it on the stream, so we're going to try like that. The starter red bar here on the bottom is when you get the stick shaker. Red, or I'm sorry, 1.0 is the actual stall point. That's when the stick pusher is going to come in. And up over here is the sort of normal stall range, or the AOA range. 0.57 is about ideal approach angle of attack. Now it'll change. This will change because of the fact that right now I don't have flaps deployed. If I did have flaps deployed, this kind of an angle of attack would actually be achieved at a much lower AOA because the flaps have different AOA behaviors. Okay, so you've seen that right now. Whatever. Now I can try and set the throttle lower. Try and set the throttle lower, but will not let me. Based just if I use auto throttle systems. So let's try and actually stall the aircraft. So I'm gonna go ahead and pick off the auto throttle. I can just do it either by pushing the button here, or I can. There's a pair of buttons here on the front of the throttles. These are the auto throttle disconnect buttons, so we can just mash those. So it's flashing disengaged at me right now, so I would have to mash it again, make the message go away. Right now, throttles will be following what I do. Right now, they're still sort of disconnected from me because of the fact that we've implemented a system where you first need to match up your physical throttles so that you don't get a sudden jolt. I'm gonna take that and I'm gonna just pull it back, pull the idle, and you'll see the aircraft now. I'm very unhappy. So at red, at the edge of the red bar, I'm gonna get the stick shaker. And that was the stick shaker shaken. And that disconnected the autopilot as well. I'm gonna cancel the autopilot message here, so I'm just gonna mash the red button. Right now the airplane's completely hands off, so as soon as the airplane stalls again, I'm gonna show you what the yokes look like when the stick shaker starts. We might have to, it might stall just about. We are at full trim up, but the aircraft will sort of tend to not want to go into full stick shaker, so I'm gonna pull it just back a little bit. So this is stick shaker alpha. Right now we're in the stick shaker range. Now we're still not stalled, just barely on the edge of a stall here. I release it, it'll unstall itself. So what if I'm, several orders of magnitude beyond reason? Then we have the next subsystem called the stick pusher. So when AOA reaches that 1.0 point, it'll actually mash the yokes forward. Now I'm not gonna pull back. Watch this. This is my pitch input. I'm not actually gonna push the yoke forward, but watch what happens to the yokes if I try and deep stall the aircraft. That was the stick pusher essentially just yanking the sticks out of the yoke out of my hands. Now it returned back because of the fact that we've unstalled and we have unloaded the aircraft. But yes, that's what it does. So when I try and stall the thing, it'll actually not let me. And both stick shaker channels need to agree, by the way, on this. Re-engage ATS. It's going to try and get us back. Now I'm going to re-engage the autopilot. And it might actually disconnect it. Because of the fact that we're flying super low speed, so it's fairly sensitive to departures. We're going to reset the auto throttle higher. And now if I engage the autopilot, we should just about avoid. Now this is, the red bar here is actually sensitive to angle of attack. So that's why when I unloaded, if I go here, when I unloaded, you'll see that the red bar here and climb up, so I could literally just, if I could do a level turn stall at fairly high speed at 170 knots. And the yacht Emperor kicked off as well, so that'll take a little bit of fixing. Yacht Emperor, this and this. An autopilot, please. I don't have a button bound for trim. It's now bound for stupid hat. Stand by, I gotta rebind this thing because I don't have a trim button. Okay, not hat switch up, definitely not that. So we want to go pitch trim down. We pitch trim. Pitch trim up. Let's see. Yes, so these are correct now. I have to trim because I sped up a lot. There's a sound there. Okay, there we go. We're back in trim and back in under control. And I can cancel this message here by mashing the center of the altitude button. So it's blinking that I've departed the altitude limit. So if I just push that, it'll go away. Okay. Stick pusher is so nice. The G4 would dislocate your shoulder. Yes, I've actually designed it such that you cannot hold against it. It will overpower you. And aiming in orbit. Happy New Year to you. Real sorry for missing your message earlier. I was a little bit busy with the airplane, stalling all over the place. And Real to Sim, welcome. Happy New Year to you too, sir. Stick pusher stay, and love the sound of motors. Yes, and you can actually, if we go down on the ground, you can even individually test them. So that's what you use these 3 switches for. So you can test a left and right stick shaker. So these are shakers. And then you have the G test unload switch. And by the way, normally the way you test all of these, you'd actually need 3 fingers for that. So in order to allow you to actually test them, you can test individual channels. They will not do a test here on the ground, so I'm sorry, in the air, so they are actually able to do that, kind of understanding. But in order to test the stick pusher, both stall protection system channels need to match. They need to agree on the stall conditions. So there are 2 separate stall protection computers, SPCs, so they both need to agree. And you need to have both of these switches up on, otherwise there's an interruption in the circuit. So what an Airbus sounding autopilot disconnect warning. Yes, it is, Pancake. It's the same sound. All the cavalry charge. By the way, so in order to let you test both channels at the same time, there's a little click spot here in the middle, which will engage both of the switches, and then you will get a simultaneous stick shaker on the ground, and that'll actually activate the stick pusher, and you'll see the yokes sort of slam forward. And there's even this thing simulated, but for that you need to actually bind a separate button. The G switch is a sort of function in the stall protection system. The stall protection computer, or the stick pusher, has a G limiting or G metering switch, which tests if the G loading on the aircraft is less than 0.5. It'll actually release a bunch of the push force, such that if you're trying to push the aircraft and it just yanks the stick fully forward, so as soon as the aircraft starts to recover, you go to half G, then it'll basically release a bunch of the forward pressure to essentially unload a little bit, so you don't get essentially flung up into the ceiling. So as soon as it senses half a G, it'll unload some of the pitch forward motion in order to avoid going into 0 or negative G. So yeah, that's the stall protection system on the aircraft. It gets your attention. And yes, that is an Airbus sounding thing. So let's go into Autopilot. We want to go into find, not that one. Since this is all custom code here, we actually have to look for one that is ours. So CL650, we want to go to control wheel 0, so the left one, and captain control wheel autopilot disconnect button. So now if I push this, it just activates this button here, but on the Autopilot side, this one doesn't move. So that's, we do have a custom switch framework that controls all the inputs individually. Happy New Year to EDU Valim. Thanks for all the hard work, bringing such an amazing aircraft. Yeah, well, I'm gonna be happy for you guys to be happy flying it. Cool. So that's the stall protection system. And yeah, turn around. And there is also this button here. I actually want to bind you. I want to bind you up to the sync. Flight director sync. So captain's flight director sync button. By the way, the aircraft is fully fly. I've put it out to Mattia. Oh, Mattia, you're going to. First thing you need to tune into one of your streams. Cool. So yeah. Vinny, welcome up. So the aircraft does have a little button here on a forward horn. That it? Yes. So the aircraft does this button here. I'm sorry, it's kind of, yeah. So what that does is it synchronizes the, what they call, essentially it's a kind of control wheel steering, right? So say for instance you are in roll hold mode. So if I turn off heading mode here, now I'm in roll hold. And I want to reset the aircraft attitude to fly like a constant bank turn. So I'm just going to go and bank the aircraft here to about 10 degrees. Release this. And now the aircraft will remain on the current altitude and the current roll value. So it'll target about 10 degrees right now, what I set. If I don't like that, I can just change that. If I mash the button again, I'll increase the roll up to, let's say, 20. That's about 20. Release that, and the autopilot re-engages. And it's called FD sync, flight director sync in Proline or Collins speak. So that's why there's a amber sync light or an amber sync annunciation coming on. And the aircraft is fully flyable from either seat. You've seen that before. In fact, let's have some fun with it. Many aircraft that have mechanical flight controls have to have some sort of mechanism for, in case you have a jam of the flight controls or some sort of a failure of the primary control mechanism. So you'd want to, you have dual redundant yokes, but what if one of them jams and you can't use the other one? So on things like a Boeing, you have breakout bolts. So they are, hey Flamesies, how are you doing? Welcome. So there are breakout bolts where if you apply a certain amount of either pitch force or roll force, depending on which axis is stuck, it'll actually sever a connecting link between them, and then all of a sudden you have two independent yokes. On the Challenger, there is no brake bolt or a shear pin. Instead, what a Challenger uses are resettable handles here. Pitch disconnect, roll disconnect. So let's say disconnect both of them. Why not? And so now I'm going to turn off the autopilot. Watch what happens with the yokes here. All of a sudden, I'm only controlling one yoke. And it actually does only control half of the flight control surfaces. So if I go to this guy and I bring up the FLT page, you will see that I'm only controlling the left side here. Here's only left elevator and left aileron. The right aileron actually isn't doing anything. Now the aircraft is still perfectly flyable. It flies a bit like a pig, so it flies a lot less responsibly, obviously. But it is still perfectly controllable. Yaw damper is still working. Trim still works. So yeah, it's still a flyable aircraft. Now, funny story is you can actually engage the autopilot this way. And by the way, one more thing that I wanted to mention. Is it only the left seat you can fly from? Of course not. What's the sense of it? El Promo is in case you have a jammed yoke. So if one of these control columns jams, if they were linked, then you couldn't use either. They'd both be stuck. So that's why you want to have, the option. Now, what if I want to fly from the right seat? I can do that too. We are actually tracking which side your camera is on, and we're considering that to be your current control side. Go back here. I'm back to controlling on the left side. And funny story, you can actually engage the autopilot this way. I'm going to cancel that warning. Now watch what happens. Systems look done. Yeah, the systems are pretty well there. Just avionics at this point, largely. Now watch what happens when I turn on the autopilot. You'll see that it's using the left yoke and the the left pitch and right roll. It's even replicated here on the flight controls. So if I go and let's see, I'm going to command a turn. You can see only the right aileron here. Actually, I'm going to go heading mode. Only the right aileron here is moving. Left aileron staying put. And only the left elevator is moving. Remind me to ask you about the camera code. It might be useful for the Hindenburg pitch. And you are two totally different stations. It's trivial code. Captain crash, so not a problem. So yeah, right now the autopilot's flying with half the flight controls. Left pitch, right roll, because of the fact that you can see it has to put in quite a bit of roll to get the airplane rolling. It's not aware of that, by the way. The autopilot has no clue about which yoke it has control of. There is no switch feedback, no electronic feedback to the autopilot. It's just the autopilot's control servos are on the right cable cluster for the roll and the left cable cluster for pitch. That's the only ones that it has control of. Cool. If I re-engage this, it'll go back to being a happy camper. Now normally you'd have to sort of fiddle and make sure that the yokes are lined up, but this way. Now we're good. Cool. Let's go vertical speed and try to intercept this here altitude. See if it'll actually understand that I want to level off here. There we go, altitude select. Buonanotte. Hey, good one. Have a good one, Matthew B57, B77. I'm assuming you're gonna go to sleep. Well, yes, that's the control stuff, the weird stuff. Yeah, the synthetic vision. Now, the synthetic vision computer, as I said, it has only a single computer that emits images. So these two images are the exact same image being projected on both screens. So what if one of the inertial reference systems is not operative, right? You've got, what do you do? So the solution, I actually can do that. I can literally just pull the power. At the moment, it will keep going for a while. Ah, cool. So I can pull power from IRS1. So right now we're on standard IRS assignments. Those are down here. Is your switching panel. That's the other part of it. These are called the reversionary switching panel, RSP. And so these allow you to transition the avionics side over to different input sensors. So I'm going to go down here, pull the breaker for IRU number 1. That one's gone, and it's still running. As you can see, it's still running, it's still working. Let's go to INS. I'm going to show you this is IRU number 1, inertial reference unit number 1. So they have dual power supplies. So I got to pull out the secondary power supply for IRU number 1. And of course, this kills the autopilot. In fact, it even killed the auto throttle. Autopilot's fairly pissed off at this point because of the fact that it's lost the to compare data with. So what can we do about that? We have triple IRS on this aircraft simulated. And we've even lost the synthetic vision. You'll notice that even this guy, even though he's requesting synthetic vision, now it says SVS inop. Because of the fact that the synthetic vision computer now cannot compare the two sides. It'll only show a synthetic vision image if both sides are within compare tolerances. Otherwise it'll disconnect itself. So we can switch over the left side to the alternate source. That'll be IRS number 3. And flight director is back. I'll re-engage the auto throttle. Maybe. Or ATS actually needs IRS number 1 to be operative. So we're out of auto throttle at this point. But autopilot will engage. So now I have manual throttle control. Yeah, the ATS doesn't have any other inputs. It only has input from IRS number 1. It needs those. Multitasking King 78 at the moment. Landing an A300, watching the stream, eating a few slices of sourdough. Good way to spend your time. Anyways, as soon as I switched over to the IRS's, synthetic vision comes back because it sees, okay, you've switched over, you've selected a different source, and it sees that by way of data buses that it sees on the inputs. So is it's LBIOC 7, I think, goes to the synthetic vision computer, and it's receiving data value for the IRS number being received on EFIS left. So this guy here, this is EFIS 0. So this guy is receiving that, okay, we are sourcing data from IRS number 2, or they're 0, 1, 2 sequentially. So we'll actually look for data on TIRS 1 as being received, SVC 0, and this is IRS data from the third IRS on board. This will be the second one, and this is the first one, which is cut. Now, what if, for example, we lost alignment on 2 IRSs? We could actually, let's see, wonder, could we could probably run both of them. So let's look. I actually don't remember where the IRS, the other IRSs, the buses, the data, the electrical connections are. So we're going to look for on the electrical connections here. It's probably DC bus 2. Now is it under DC essential? Where is IRS number 2? IRU1. Okay, so IRU1 is on DC essential, so it's probably gonna be over here. Stop me, guys, if you see there. So IRU number 2, which sits on CB2H10. CB2 is this guy over here, and H10 is the primary power supply. There we go. IRU number 2. Pop that guy, and still nothing. Still got IRSs working. So we gotta go over to the panel for all their secondary power supplies. Okay, now it's really pissed off. Fuel quantity attitude correction fail. Now we are again have lost both autopilot and the synthetic vision computer. So now it says SPS. By the way, the message will go away if I deselect synthetic vision. So I gotta go here into menu and deselect this here button, then it goes away. So I'm not. You got the circuit breaker lighting in your sim. Or is that Goran's hands? Circuit breaker lighting is already there. It's just not night at this point. The airplane lighting is still kind of janky, so I'm not turning that off. So synthetic vision right now is inoperative. Now we can switch both sides, both avionics sets, over to the third IRS. So if we go to right IRS to alternate, you'll notice that the message here turned from, before that it was white. So if I go back, before it was white, that basically says, hey, you're on alternate, but it's fine. It's normal. That happens. It doesn't require your attention. But if both of us go to the alternate side, the PFDs actually crosstalk to each other, and they'll notify each other, hey, I'm using the same IRS. same source, so they'll go amber to tell you, you know, you're down redundancy. You've lost redundancy there. I wonder if the autopilot will turn on. Okay, now it won't. So the autopilot is now out. We only have one inertial reference system available. So autopilot is gone. Enlightening conversation Discord. Gonna have lots of fun pulling CBs and exploring all the dependencies and redundancies in the Challenger 650. Yep. So at this point, we still have the flight director, unlike a certain stupid A300. We still have flight director available, but it's at this point manual flight only. But other than that, the airplane's perfectly flyable. Now here's the trick. Here's a little thing that you can do at home. I'm going to deselect the... Well, actually, I don't have to deselect the synthetic vision system. Notice that... Let's go to here. Push the IRU back in. Then I'm going to flip you over to normal. So this guy is now lost attitude data. I'm going to go push IRU2 in. I'm going to push U in. Like so, and we hit a bug. Oh, no. Good stuff. It shouldn't have done that, Theta, but it did. Cool. Burn. Yeah. Turn something up. Self-erect. So why are you hitting that problem? Let's go to IRS, laser F6 991. Update attitude reversion mode. Okay, 934. This finite theta. So it's definitely, we do have phi. We do have a phi value. So we did determine that self-erect accelerate R. Yay, testing. Exactly, right? Oh, right, I know, I probably have an idea. Self-erect. G-load is excessive. And not as NAND. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, let's have a look at the source of this malarkey. So, TE terminal go burr. Nightmare frame, welcome. So what I was expecting to have happen, and what we're gonna see in a short while after I fix this bug, is the IRSs are actually able to go into reversionary attitude mode to power them back on. They'll use the accelerometer measurements and the gyro measurements a little bit to essentially find level. They will not give you actual heading, so they'll be heading less, and they won't actually give you a accurate position, but they will at least give you attitude. They'll give you, you know, are you pitched up? Are you rolled? That attitude has fairly large error bars, very large error bars. You know, talking plus or minus 5 to 10 degrees easily, and but it's at least something. You know, you're at least able to tell if you're going straight or if you're going, you know, rolling off into the death spiral. And there is a separate function in the FMS, which is you're able to actually give yourself a heading. Now they still will not give they still will not give a position. They won't take that, but they will give you a heading, magnetic heading that you have to manually enter. You have to read off the magnetic compass. And they will keep a heading to within the drift rate is 15 degrees per hour, worst case. So you might have to reapply the heading regularly. First, I have to figure out why the hell the thing ate shit. Okay, so that's probably just booted up, right? Just freshly booted up, and the return have data. Damn. My throat. Okay, so we do have a. So phi is the roll angle. What did it guess? It rolled minus. It guessed minus 22. We are actually about minus 5. So that's what I'm talking about. It'll try and guess, but its guess will be fairly poor. Manually updated heading from the Whiskey Compass. RIP my flights over polar regions. Yes, flimsies. In that case, that's for attitude reversion mode. That should only be required if you have a serious problem in flight. For example, you're not even going to have a position on the FMS. It's just going to go, I don't know where you are. Now, the FMSs do actually do a triple IRS mix and GPS input, so they will actually, if you have GPS signal, they'll probably give you a position, but it's going to be not as accurate and not as precise as if you had actual IRS alignment. Okay. Actually, you can fly the thing without IRS alignment at all. Kind of weird, but it's possible. How do we get to not have data? So self-erect Excel. Rec, blah, blah, blah. Update outputs. How could we not have a theta is the pitch angle, phi is a roll angle. How could we not have a theta value compute? This thing doesn't do theta at all, or does it? Theta, it's sort of neat. If it does have it, it'll use it, but it doesn't provide it out. So what does actually provide the theta angle, pitch angle? Acceleration, blah. SE theta target Excel. So what are you set to? Nothing. Normalize roll heading, accelerometer reading. There. That's weird. Okay, so print Excel ACF. We've got a up acceleration of 10. These should be computable. Download stream to study. You're taking notes. I've avoided putting copyrighted music on here just so that I can actually put it up on YouTube. Well, there was an initial burst of music at the start, but I'm going to cut that out. Okay, so rate of the year. You have those, so from this it should be able to compute a theta angle. Theta angle, theta angle, theta angle, blah blah blah. URL is now phi. Oh right, it probably that and blah. Cell ACF. Vector 2, negative, normalized pitch roll, filter in angle, query to GRAL, challenge accepted. Ooh. In there. Data. One of these must have returned true. That is otherwise false. This guy definitely does not return a theta angle, so that one's definitely out of the way. It's just this one. Just this guy here can give us. So theta angle, we'll find a way easy. Easy indeed. So this will return false. Oh. I get it. So if all these are true, or my acceleration is. Okay, so what's the rotation rate of the aircraft? This is. Okay, so we have GREL be greater than self-erect GL. Right, so this is, oh, I get it. I understand now. I understand what the issue is here. Right, I actually need to split this up into two. Right, so this is not a good way to actually do that. We'll be now say void. And we'll just return like that. Also be a void, void, and return. Get lost, and so if isnan theta or isnan phi, then we can't actually give you an initial estimate of the aircraft attitude because you're basically moving too fast or being too unstable on goods and all that stuff. So, okay, so with this in hand, I don't need that have data thing anymore, and that will go away, and that will go away. Now, so kill you, restart. And let's go. It'll actually put me right back where I was. So the thing is, essentially the problem was that it was forcibly trying to get itself into an aligned state, even though to actually get the sort of self-erection algorithm where self-erect meaning it finds up which way is up. In order to get into that algorithm, you actually need to be a fairly stable flight conditions. You must not be turning too hard or pitching too hard and pulling too many G's. So I was actually in somewhat of a turn here. That's why it sort of failed and it just hit this assertion check incorrectly. Go. Okay, so we're still bar cure. That's good. And now this guy's out of alignment as well. So now we're really screwed. Not a problem though. Ah, there we go. See? That guy's back. So this guy's now aligned. This guy isn't though. Sure. So in this case we definitely have unreliable attitude. You can even see we got an attitude miscompare flag. So who's lying now? Good question. I have to add a bunch of power because the auto throttle system is non-functional right now because IRS number 1 is inoperative. So attitude miscompare. I'm actually going to reset IRU number 3 as soon as I find which bus it's on. Normally what you would do is you would go switch over to a backup, but in this case my backup is fully reset, so actually I'm going to repower IRU number 1 and IRU number 1. This guy, so I'll reset both power supplies. I'm going to try and get the airplane as level as possible. There we go. IRU number 1 is back. So IRU 1 is functional again. Recycle the flight director here. So let's go flight director. And we don't have a heading notice though. So I can't actually engage heading fold mode on the autopilot. This is reminding me of the TACA 73 tuna crash. Yeah, pressing the wrong ADI. In this case, you'll notice actually I gotta turn on the yaw damper again. Notice that the yaw damper, I have no alignment. Yaw damper is functional. I have no alignment, and the pitch trim works just fine. This is over here. The thing, that's the pitch trim. So that's all fine. And even funnier is I can actually engage the autopilot if I give it a heading. Wonder why the auto throttle is IRU dependent. Shouldn't it just go? So the auto throttle needs the inertial reference units ground speed, I think, for providing buffet compensation. Or actually, it uses G, forward and backwards G. So now that IRU number 1 is back on, the auto throttle computer is back functional. So the thing is, the auto throttle computer, in order, if you have a lot of wind buffet, so this will go up and down and up and down and up and down. You would see, if we just didn't have any compensation, the auto throttle would just be doing this all the time, which you really don't want to have happen. So instead, it uses the uses the forward and backwards G loading on the IRUs to determine whether the acceleration is actual true acceleration, or if it is just a little bit of fakery happening from the fact that we have that we're just being shook around a little bit. So it will compensate for speed loss. So if you have a persistent wind, it eventually will catch that, but until it won't actually do the sort of instantaneous responses. So notice that right now I have no heading, right? So heading flags are applied, but what I can do is I can go into index. I can go into that slight bit of broken scenery there, geometry. You'll notice that if I go to, where's it? Index, IRS control. There we go. Now I've got a new prompt here. It's called set IRS heading. I can actually go ahead and punch in a heading. This will be taken from the whiskey compass here. So current heading, here we can keep it. I roll as near as possible to wings level before we do a reading here. So I'd say 148, about there. So quickly punch in 148. Get that in there. And now we have gotten the IRS's a sort of initial chance at being, somewhat reasonable. For some reason, the FMS thinks that our velocity vector is over off to the side, and ground speed is absolutely crazy. I'm going to check why it's doing that. It shouldn't be. Now I can even re-engage the autopilot and go into heading hold. Check that out. I don't have any alignment. The airplane has the IRSs have no friggin' clue where we are, and yet the autopilot is working. Will there be a fix all problem switch on the instructor panel or something to repair an individual fault? It'd be nice for training purposes if you fail something severe. Yes, there will be. The wing biking, there will be a button like that. So as you can see, now we're back into fully functional mode here. Well, more or less functional. There's modes that are, the airplane's still gonna fly a little bit like an asshole. Notice, for example, that what's up with this? That's because the IRSs they're no longer perfectly, well, very closely behaving themselves. Ground speed seems to be waiting. Yeah, I gotta check that. This is actually calculated by the FMS if I remember right, so I'd have to go into the FMC position Kalman filter, and it would just, yeah, it would have to figure out something why it's doing this, but whatever. But for the time being, I can actually turn those off if they're distracting. Here as well, synthetic vision off and FPV off. Now the ground speed is a little bit borked, but for track gear, I've got gear up and gear down after a restart. Pancake celebrates aggressively. There's a fix all button. I would not wish anyone having a only aircraft suffering from severe lightning strike for too long. Yeah, I can imagine that. Yes, I know it was up in the thousands. It was somehow broken. I don't know why. Anyway, so right now you can see that we've got, now the IRSs have sort of agreed on something. They are now reasonably close. They're not very close, and by the way, IRS 3 I think is still out. Yes, so it's this guy actually providing the bad data, so I'm going to find its breaker. I'm going to go ahead and kill it. So that display is going to go away. Electrical network. Now this is gonna be in some sort of a utility bus, I'm pretty sure. DC2 utility, no. It's essentially not, it's a non-essential system. So it actually might be on DC bus 1. IR3, there we go. So it's CB1H13. CB1, that's this breaker panel, H13, IRU3, and bye. Okay. And it's gone. Re-engage it. Give it its power back. And we can even watch the thing go into reversion mode. There we go. And we have reversionary data here. I don't know why it's thinking that we got negative 27 degrees of pitch, but it'll pull itself back into normal. And I'm going to re-enter our heading. So we are 2223232, about there. So 232. There we go, we've readjusted. So in like this 5 minutes or something, we've already drifted by 1 degree, roughly. We've also got the GNSS message here, GNSS only. So if we go to here, it says we got a new message. Now the FMS is reverted back over to using only GNSS inputs. So the airplane is still perfectly flyable, even on autopilot. And in fact, I could go, the FMS still has a position. I don't have a flight plan in it right now, but the airplane still has a position. But it's only using the GPS receivers at this point. And now it's telling me that all the IRSs are in attitude mode. So let's go turn around. In fact, I'm going to go direct to the VOR, engage nav mode. VOR has engaged. I'm going to switch you over to nav source VOR2. You're receiving the VOR 116.9er. Cool. So yeah, that's that. The airplane is still perfectly functional, but right now I have synthetic vision is unavailable because we have lost alignment on both synthetic vision systems. Oh, the FPV's back. We even got a ground speed. Look at that. Even got a ground speed. And this is right now is only derived by the FMSs from FMC position. So the ground speed right now is only derived from GPS signals. So from here, let's see. This is IRS resolution. So blah blah blah. Go to FMC1 position Kalman filter. You'll see that the speed is quite lagging behind real time. There's at least that. Yes. There is at least that. So right now it is just using the GPS receivers, which are fairly slow to update their position estimates, their track and everything. But they are able to give you a ground speed, and they are able to give you a ground track. And the airplane's going to try and re-intercept that radial that I just flew over. Having a bit of a hard time finding it though, because the VOR is right now behind a hill. Not even getting a DME indication. Go like that, and 50 knots. Have a good one, Reflect Reality, Sim. Talk to you tomorrow. When are we gonna get a DME here? That's when we actually can see the BOR or the mountain there somewhere. We're in Hawaii, yes. But you're still in the middle of nowhere. I actually wanted to have some mountains around so I can check the synthetic vision rendering of the hill. Have we announced release yet? Not yet though. Not yet. Sorry about that. There we go. 60 miles away. So at this point we probably are in line of sight with the DME. After 10,000 feet, we climb out at 250 knots with speed, which is accelerate to BOS pilot. You have 2 options given by the flight manual. You can keep it at 250, in which case you will, and actually I can show you, so let's just keep on climbing here. You can keep it at 250, in which case you will get to the aircraft is designed to go into Mach hold mode at a fixed altitude. It's always at 33,600 feet. I don't know why, but that's the way Bombardier designed it. So at 33,600, it's going to go into Mach hold modes, and that at 250 IIS matches up exactly to Mach 0.74, and then just keep Mach 0.74 until you level off. Or the other possibility, if you want to go a little bit faster, you accelerate up to 270, and that'll give you, I think, Mach 0.78 in the final climb. Now notice though, regardless of how high I set the speed, even if I set it to something that's almost unobtainable for the aircraft, it will not descend. I have written the autopilot to be smart enough about that, so it will not dip down. For how long are you making this plane? Yeah, it's coming up on 2 years now. Probably past 2 years. So it'll aim for about 200 feet, 200 feet a minute minimum. Let's climb at a somewhat more reasonable speed. Set standard on both sides. One year, 4 months. Perhaps more like 2 years. We've been working on this fairly, I wouldn't say quite since the TBM was released, but you know, probably plus 4 months after the TBM was released, we started on this. Okay, so 270 knots. Gonna be our new climb target speed. How long did TBM take? TBM took about 1.5 years. 3 weeks after TBM came out, I sort of laid the foundations of the source repositories here, but notice, for example, by the way, that we are perfectly on track to the VOR, even though it thinks that we are anting off to the side, and we were sort of not quite level. It's because of the fact that right now the IRSs are fairly low precision at this point, so we've probably drifted off the actual true heading by a few degrees already. It's about 17,017, yeah, off by a degree about there. So we could go to IRS control 017, that heading. We adjust the heading again to the most accurate one. Pancake 001 is back in commission after not 1 but 2 PC crashes. Well, 2 for the price of 1, I'd say. So, as we are right now going full blast on the engines, we've got plenty of fuel, so I'm not too worried about that. Engines right now are running full climb power. On climb out on a runway, are you supposed to engage IIS mode or set VS? On climb out from the runway, you would normally go into flight level change. So you'd initially pitch up to 12.5, which is your pitch target on the flight director. I know, by the way, that everybody gets triggered by seeing V-bar. There we go. So this will probably be a little bit more familiar to you, all you Boeing and Airbus pilots. On the 650 when TBM was released, Ryan White, not 100%, but we were very close. We were fairly close with our decision at that point. We had a bunch of stuff planned already. There was some uncertainty. We still had some options open, but largely by the time TBM came out, we were like 80%, 90% Challenger at that point. It's taking forever, so I'm just going to slow down to 250. Give us a little bit more climb rate. Engines are going full blast. 97.7 is, or 97.8 is the maximum cruise N1 setting. It'll actually decay after this, depending on temperature and stuff like that. But 97.8 is the maximum. See, there it goes, coming down a little bit. And this is all based on outside air temperature. So this is actually coming from the thrust management database in the FMCs. I wish 1440 people is the only option for my stream. My internet can't keep up with 100%. I'm sorry about that, pancakking. I'm not probably getting transcoding from Twitch. Big thanks for TBM. My home cockpit is built around it and fly 90% of the time using a sim. Cool. 410. Step on the ball. Welcome. So we're just about 20 miles away from the VOR here, and that's straight as the crow flies, so to speak, so it's a straight shot, so probably more like 15 miles ground track, 16 miles ground track, something like that. Now watch what happens when we get to 33,600 for 250 knots. It should switch over to, I think, Mach 0.72. Yeah, Mach 0.72 is going to be the exact number. I should explain the takeoff climb out procedure. Could you repeat? I didn't actually explain it, so I'll get to watch. So Mach 0.72 should be the one that you get on the sort of initial climb. Let's go flight level 370 and 600, and this will swap over these two numbers. There you go, Mach 0.72, and now the IS is down here. It'll now maintain Mach 0.72 all the way up to our top altitude, at which point you can accelerate. Ask a question, Toto starts to answer it, then it buffers and skips through the entire explanations in front of my eyes. I'm sorry. Pancake King, the initial climb works by you following the flight director initially up to, some minimum speed. And then you can just engage IS or flight level change. What's the highest Mach you can do on the CL? Officially Mach 0.85. Practically, you probably wouldn't want to go much faster than Mach 0.82 for fuel consumption reasons. You can go up to Mach 0.85. So how are we looking on that VOR crossing? You'll notice when we get to essentially crossing almost over the station, the autopilot is going to go, here we go, DR, Dead Reckoning. Switched over to Dead Reckoning mode, so it basically assumes now the flight level, or we are just about to cross the station, so it doesn't think that it's going to be very accurate, so it's now going based on essentially ground track is what it's trying to maintain. And once we come out the other side, and it does that by comparing the ground speed calculated from the DME value on the RSS DME1 channel. It basically looks at this speed here. We're just about to cross the station. There we go. flipped over on the other side. And once we reacquire, once this gets close to our actual ground speed, it actually calculates slant angle. Once we get to 45-degree slant angle, it'll re-engage normal VOR mode. It'll retrack the VOR. It'll get back on the radial. Hey, Patrick for Zurich. Welcome. Thanks. Altitude select capture. Let's go ahead and accelerate up to like Mach 0.80. So the engines are going to stay essentially at, well, it's right now switched over to cruise limit. So it'll go up to full power at cruise. Altitude select. Once we come out enough on the other side of the VOR, there we go. Let's switch back over, turn off dead reckoning mode. Seeing that we've gone, probably 45 degrees away from the VOR, and it'll re-intercept the radial at this point. And so we've gone essentially straight through the VOR without any kind of wibbly wobblies on the VOR. There was a little bit of wobble there, but very, very little. I'll do a very gentle re-intercept. Get back on it. You wouldn't even feel this in the aircraft. Mind you, we're still out of alignment. We have no alignment on any of the inertial reference systems, so we're right now operating all three IRSs in attitude reversion mode. This sort of wallowing around, that's probably caused by the fact that the IRSs are not quite sure. Are we actually slightly turning, or are we just banked over? Happy New Year. Oh, thank you. Yes. Hopefully it's going to be a good way to start 2021. Hopefully this year is going to be less screwy than usual. Okay, so 0.17, thereabouts, coming up to 0.18. Close enough. It's hard to be sure. 0.020 is probably right now our heading. It's hard to be sure with the whiskey compass here. You can't really compare. You can't really, be sure within the last 1 or 2 degrees. It doesn't work that way. And there we are, Mach 0.80. Probably Mach 0.82 will be achievable, so if we go up to there, Mach 0.82, we could easily get that speed. Lead pressure 35 psi. I'm gonna get a quick peek at the EVS. It doesn't have EVS. Well, not right now. Questionable whether I'm going to be able to implement it. The real thing does have EVS. I mean, it's an option. Overhead texturing looks great, but it doesn't know how advanced the systems are already. Oh, these systems are pretty much done. It's just at this point avionics really catching up with the rest of the avionics. Systems are mostly there. Yeah, so Mach 0.82. Right now we're slowly coming up to that speed. You can see it doesn't want to push the engines too hard. It's sort of going more gently. The modeling, Patrick for Zurich right now is really kind of placeholder. Gordon has a lot more modeled, but he doesn't push stuff in bits. He sort of makes big commits. So yeah, there we go, Mach 0.82, just about barely there. Now, admittedly, that does burn quite a bit of gas to go this fast. So you gotta pick your battles. Anyway, let's go ahead and descend. Flight level change. I'm actually gonna back up the speed at Mach 0.77. That's gonna give us 280, I think, knots on the you Got that piece of modeling that you were waiting for? Not yet, Vinny. No. Unfortunately, not yet. Next stream will be Big Gore and dumped in. I'm gonna try. The main point of the stream was really to say, I guess, Happy New Year to everybody. It's crazy how fast your progress came along the last few months. Interesting. Oh, thank you. And to make the descent a little bit faster, we're gonna pull speed brake. I'm actually gonna turn around here. We'll go back to heading. Notice, by the way, a bit of a pet peeve of mine on X-Plane. Not X-Plane, autopilots will actually roll back. And since this is a completely custom autopilot, custom AVI, custom everything, I've actually implemented the proper roll behavior. So the autopilot will not flip back when you roll through 180 degrees. 3600, it's gonna go to, there we go. Switch back over to IAS mode. I'm gonna just align you to 270 knots. So yes, notice still it's turning left because that's where I started. First I've heard of this Linus plane. Been flying TBM for a few months and love it. Can't wait to see it. Oh, yep, gonna have fun. 33600. It's gonna turn off half bank mode. So now I'm gonna full bank. Your specific VR for the Challenger, is that something based on FMC or something else calculates? It'll calculate it for you, but there are tables, standard tables, as you would normally find on all aircraft. Yes, it also calculates takeoff speeds. It's not right now implemented. I do have the data for it. I just haven't implemented the algorithm yet. Actually, we're going to turn around here, so that was 195 or something like that. Thereabouts. So arm nav. This is a bit of a pet peeve of mine. If I turn through 180 degrees, it shouldn't reverse the turn in real aircraft. And it doesn't here either. Okay. Let's turn like that to get ourselves onto an intercept. You're lucky that I'm on mobile. You can enter right now, even though I don't have ref speeds implemented from the FMS, you can actually, not the menu I wanted, what did I want to do here? All right, I want to get over here. Boom, and off. And you can actually go into a little menu here called refs menu. It's also accessible through the main menu. It's over here, refs. There's a quick button. And you can just type them in manually. So vref and v approach. Hang on. Or I forget. This is, I think, the go around speed or something like that. You can just punch in whatever number you want, something like that. 140, 135, 30, that'll do. And let's see, VAC, that'll be our or go around speed. We'll set that something like, I don't know, 170. There we go. We can even set our minimums. I don't know, Barrow, 400 feet. Barber Pole's my home. So how far away are we from that VOR? That's so high. I'm gonna keep the speed brake out. What's our runway alignment here anyway? Okay, we'll be coming out on about a down or on about a base here, left base. Let's try for a little approach. Yeah, that'll do. Perfect. Landing altitude selector. The altitude, what's the elevation of this field? Details, 38 feet. Okay, yeah, so it's essentially sea level. all these parts, all this system here is already implemented. That's all done. VOR has engaged. Gonna re-intercept that VOR now. It'll do a fairly gentle intercept. Keep in mind though, the VOR, watching 80 songs with the family. Huh. Midnight in Africa by Toto is playing right now. Sadly not the metal version. Well. So right now notice that it's thinking that actually our velocity vector is leading our velocity vector is leading our turn. Now that is absolutely not true. That's definitely not the case. The problem is more the fact that the IRSs now have got inaccurate heading data. We already got into 2021 in Europe. Yes. That's why I timed Patrick. That's why I timed the stream like this. And there we go. We rolled about just about on the radial here. I put it off about 1 degree so it's not re-intercepting the exact same line back. I used a slightly different heading. It was 196 would have been the exact reciprocal of this line. Fairly slippery. Actually, no, it's coming down pretty good. We're doing about almost 5 degrees of vertical angle. So it's coming down pretty good. Don't worry about it. Without speed brakes, it'll do about 3 degrees of nose down. I mean, as in, they call this the FPA, the flight path angle. And that is because if you look on the engine, so why doesn't the aircraft, a good choice of time just watching before, why does jet slow down much less intensely or much less, strongly than a turboprop? And primarily because of the fact that jet engines maintain a decent amount of forward thrust. So you'll notice we're still producing almost 1 kilonewton of forward thrust, and that's for both, each engine produces that amount. So yeah, the engines, as you can see here, they're actually 71%. Normally the idle here is about 63% N2. They're up at 71% and 45% N1. And that is not just because of the fact that we're in a slipstream. That is mostly because of the fact that the engines are artificially kept high. It would be almost 80% or something like 82% N1 at high altitude, like flight level 410 is going to be the idle. And that is caused by the fact that the engines have to maintain a suitable responsiveness to throttle. So even though you're back at flight idle, you try and re-accelerate the engine at very high altitude, low atmospheric density from low speed. It'll take forever to do anything. And second of all, the engines feed into the bleed system, and the bleed system has to maintain a suitable amount of pressure. So right now it's got 21 psi coming out of the engines, and that is used for where are you? That is used for your packs. There's 21 psi. I'm going to switch units over here as well. 18 psi out of the lead duct, so the pack has to have enough pressure to actually pressurize the cabin. Does it suffer from the same problem as the CRJ, where it does need a fairly high throttle setting to maintain enough bleed operate? Yes. The Winged Viking, it does have that. So if I bring this up and I turn on the wing anti-ice, you'll notice that I have to advance the throttle here. So I go and have it right now. Basically have to put this up. In order to get into the anti-ice region is 78%, the threshold there. You'll notice that'll shallow up our angle quite a bit. So barely doing 2 degrees flight path angle at this point. Yes. That's exactly what that is, pancakes, and if I can show you why. Got a bleed system here. We gotta slow down. Coming up on 10,000 feet. We'll put on the pulse light system. Got a 14 stage bleed. This is your anti-ice duct. And that's why we need to keep the pressure up, and we need to keep the temperature up so that we can actually de-ice the surfaces here. Wing is right now coming up on 27 degrees, and we've just got our green lights here, so those are your sufficient heat switches in the... If I turn these off, and if I let the wing cool off, you would see that the wing will actually... Well, this light will take a little bit of time if the wing's been fairly frigid and cold until it warms up. Yeah, that's how that works. You get sufficient duct temperature, 180 degrees right now. Green yellow split, hard to see the difference. Green yellow, which green yellow? It can't be CL600. Oh right, that. Oh, you mean this part? Yeah, that'll be probably a bit of a trouble. Yeah, troublesome existence there, I guess. So anyway, yeah. But you can engage the engine anti-ice without needing to add power. If you can go ahead and pull these guys to idle. Engine anti-ice does not require you to add power. So it's still heating up pretty good. It just does, there isn't enough bleed flow to keep a now just passing over the VOR again, so it's gone back over to dead reckoning mode. The weather VOR is about there somewhere. Now I'm gonna turn around here, go back to heading. About the heading of the runway, right? Yeah. I'm gonna do a bit of a circle. Oh, speed brakes out. Turn off the engine anti-ice so we don't burn up the ducts. Hello, Peter 2. Need wing and engine heat. Does the 650 require? Yes. Captain Crash? Yes, exactly. It does. It's essentially the same aircraft. I mean, you can run it. It's more the matter. It's more the problem that duct fires be simulated. Yes, they will. Yeah. Is our heading here actually? There probably is none too plussed about the fact that we're fairly misaligned, so 095 is about our heading. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and pack the speed brakes in. Gonna arm the reversers, and I'm gonna put on the rest of the lights here. I'm going to take out the autopilot. Flight director off. We roll back to about 210. I'm going to take just about to take a stage of flaps. We're just a little bit too fast for that, so roll about level. Fairly high still. Okay then. He breaks out. I'm gonna take a stage of flap. There's a lot of... Come on, explain. Okay, that auto throttle isn't helping at this point. Yeah, we're high as a kite here. So S turns, here we come. You're down. Yes, flight spoiler is deployed. Thank you. Final stage of flap here. Super high. Initial type course. They'd probably hate me. Yeah, doing a little bit of an overbank there. Just because I don't want to waste time in the air again. Or more time in the air. And I absolutely have to. Yeah, close enough. We'll call this done. See, and we've even saved fuel. We've been flying idle all the way. Minimum. There we go. This was an absolute crap landing, but who cares? It's just for development purposes. Thousand feet stable. As the kids would say, butter. Oh, it's better like aerobatics. Resume generating event. Yeah. Cancel that message. Reverser's disarmed. Apu, come on. Thanks for the follow, Max Panda 300. Pack the flaps back in. In the back, won't be judging your landing too carefully. You should be fine. Yeah, it was a bit of crapshoot. I claim immunity from the fact that we have had avionics failures all the way. I claim emergency authority. APU is available. Gotta stick it in somewhere. Generator on bus. This a parking spot? Looks like a non-movement area. Close enough for my perfection. Well, apparently a taxi line going through whatever this is. Oh, here we go. This is a movement area. Sure, we'll park it up here. I have my pedals set up, so I have to do. Right, stop. Yes, I think we're stopped. Yep, there we go. Cool. So let's go ahead and go. Switch over to the APU generator. And you can actually watch the engines spooling down. Wait, hang on, I'm gonna bind up some keys here. We'll go and be, what do they call these? Throttle? Left throttle, shut off, idle up. Go. Throttle. shut off idle down. Yeah, okay, cool. Same thing for these guys. Throttle, throttle, right throttle, idle up. This will be shut off, idle down. Cool. Hopefully that'll actually let me shut down the engines from the outside. So I've basically just bound up buttons to these, pulling these out of the tops. Let me get you the sounds here. Full show. God, I was streaming my Hindenburg landings. Cool. So, it's about 2 hours since the start of the stream, so we're gonna go ahead and shut off the airplane here. The IRS have already gone into alignment mode because they've seen, oh, he's stationary. We can quickly align ourselves, so we're all aligning. So we're not gonna let them do that quite all the way. You can see ITTs are climbing back up. That's because of the fact that the exhaust pipes are hot, so the probes here in the ITT section are now starting to reheat again, and the oil system is fairly toasty. Oh yeah, we're gonna wrap it up here. So, crucial bit of setup that you might want to do before you exit the aircraft. There might be a way that we know about that. Is you must not forget switch this switch over it off before you turn off the AC power supply to the aircraft, because otherwise you, for whatever reason, the emergency lights can only be disarmed when you have AC power on the aircraft. Somebody thought that was a good design, so that's the way it is. Happy New Year, CL650 pilot. We're gonna wrap the stream up here, and let's see, anything else? Pretty much it. Disarm the steering system. Flaps are up. All the other stuff is looking good. Hydraulics should be off. But now it's going to yell at me that the remaining hydraulic systems are... This one's already off. This one's already off. So now's the last one that's going to come off there. And cool. Yeah, so we're just going to go APU generator off. APU off. We're supposed to wait until the indications here disappear. That's basically to give the electronic control unit enough time to shut itself down. And I'm just going to quickly accelerate over that. So we're just going to go ahead and shut off the rest of the aircraft. So off. Everything's off at this point. I'm just going to bring up the audio because, of course, what you have to hear when you get outside the aircraft, you have to come down and smell the engine grease. Because we've been running the engine. You can even see that there's a heat shimmer. Yeah. Ah, no tape previews. Leftanis. Hey, you just came in at just the wrong time. It's just about to wrap up the stream because it's just 2 hours have just expired. So yeah, this is a hot section of the engine. So this is basically the engine core, the hottest part. So yeah, these guys right now are at about 270 degrees Celsius up here. So that's a good, it's a good peak. not quite a pizza oven temperature, but that is quite the oven temperature. Your home oven at max, at full blast. Cool. So, yes, do bug me later about it. So yeah, so cool, folks. I'm gonna thank you for your participation. Hope you're gonna hope you're gonna have a great 2021. Um, if you haven't quite gotten a 2020 out yet, happy slide into 2021. And for those of us that are there already, let's hope the rest of the year is going to be smooth sailing, just like this landing. Perfect. No issues whatsoever. Reese. Okay. Take care, everybody, and yeah, I'll see you next time.